Hey, so welcome back to the podcast. I wrote this down thinking about my guest, that there's not many people that have a straight line professional path directly into the real estate business or in the mortgage business or the entrepreneurial endeavor that you found yourself in. And today's guest is absolutely no different. From law enforcement to CEO of the global juggernaut, all things RE/MAX. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Adam Contos. Adam, welcome, man.
Hey, thanks, my friend. It's great to see you. How you been?
Man, I've been super good, very busy. I think we both do. We miss all the chances to run past each other to, conference, high five, go have a beer, hang out, have those chats. Think we'll be back there anytime soon. What's your forecast?
Yeah, I'm hoping shortly after the first of the year, we can actually start, unpacking a little bit, but, we still have to deal with this thing bouncing around the cities called COVID and be careful about it. But I mean, I'll tell you, I have a dinner appointment after this with another business associate. So I think people are starting to understand their boundaries.
Yeah, I agree. And, for the people that are out there listening, recognize that, Adam has, you guys said 130, 140,000 agents. I probably should have known that. How many agents now around the world? How many countries are you guys now in?
So we're in 110 plus countries, in which, bounce around here and there.
Yeah.
And then somewhere between 130 and 135,000 agents.
Love it. I don't think countries bounce around, but yes, I'm totally with you on that. I was busting. See, guys, for the people that are listening right now, Adam and I go way back. We've had lots of fun exchanges. So don't take this anything other than just like two guys just being themselves. So 130, 135,000 agents, but 110 countries. I don't think Adam, people get, and I don't want to say the weight, heaviness, the responsibility, the joy, the fun of running an organization that is represented in 110 countries around the world. That's a lot of different languages. That's a lot of different cultures. And we're talking about COVID a minute ago. Like, that's a lot of different experiences of COVID. Give the listeners, not that we want to go all CEO nerdy, for everybody today, but give the listeners a little insight in what does it take to run a global company?
Wow. I mean, and everything changed in March when COVID, this is not like one of those regional things. Like we have a fire or a hurricane or an earthquake or whatever. This was like everybody had the same problem. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of zooming around the world doing what we're like on these little boxes right now. Right. It's interesting because the first thing that struck me was everybody has the same thing in their heart.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because when you show up, they want kindness, they want leadership, they want clarity and direction, and they want to go help other people. So that's the beauty of our industry, is that's why people are here, is to help other people. So that was really kind of that commonality of, they look at me and they go, Adam, how can we go help other people? And that's what it all came back down to.
Yeah. So I was listening to Elon Musk talk about living through COVID, through his China operation, December, January, and then his European operation, and then his US operation, like literally saying, like, I experienced it multiple times, the same exact sort of tragic transformation. You have to have some of that same experience. Like, you guys saw it early. My former COO was from Beijing, so we were hearing about it early. But I don't really think, as much as I'd like to say we were prepared for it, I don't think we were really prepared for it. Like, I mean, we had laptops and everybody's ready to go remote. But I mean, prepared for that first 2 weeks, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. What insights did you get early, because you do have this global company, that helped you in the North American market or any other markets to prepare for it?
It was fascinating because we heard the same thing that you did. So we left our convention in early March, and we had 65 countries represented there, 7,000 people from 65 countries. Yeah. By the way, I still have yet to have somebody from there call me and say, hey, I got COVID at the convention. So, knock on wood. But we had people leaving our convention who would then be quarantined as soon as they hit the ground in their countries. So that was really the first blast of it that we had, and talking to them and them going, hey, can you call and say that we don't know of anybody there? So we would work with them. But of course the government entities are like, that's too bad. So it got to, what do we do? And ultimately what it boiled down to is let's communicate as best we can, and let's talk to our customers with a relatable capability, which turns out to be video. Hello. The best we can. So that's really kind of where we went was, hey, open up with kindness, find out if everybody's okay, and let's figure out what we can do together to help each other.
So speaking of communication, one of the things I've noticed with you in the last, I would say more so 18 months, but it's really gotten more on my radar or in my news feed the last 9 months is you've gone hard on content, partner. It's almost like I was going to bust your chops and say, are you starting a coaching company? Like what's going on here? Like, so tell us tell the listeners, like, what are you doing from a content standpoint? Why are you doing it? What's the strategy? Like, what are you thinking with all this? Cause you're doing a lot.
I have this philosophy that leaders grow leaders. I mean, that's our job, Tom. My job and your job. Our job is to grow leaders, and we grow leaders by giving them information and confidence to execute.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people in this day and age, they go for entertainment instead of information. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't really help much of anything except for it takes their mind off of some stressful situations or what have you. But ultimately, it doesn't give them something to improve themselves with.
Right.
So that's really what I do is I look for things that I can absorb myself. But it's interesting because a great mentor of mine a couple decades ago, his name happens to be Dave Linegar, told me, hey, Adam, be a sponge. I go, oh, so I need to go gather as much as I can. He goes, no, you need to gather and give.
Yeah.
So that's that philosophy that I'm working under is, and you're right, I have been going hardcore on it. I mean, I'm in the middle of a 5-part series right now on engagement, putting out video every day.
Saw it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, exactly. So I broadcast that on 6 different platforms because I wanted to figure out, okay, where is the engagement occurring, and good leaders measure their impact. So I wanted to see where that was happening. As a result, I'm broadcasting across those platforms, varying my times a teeny tiny bit and a little bit of what I'm saying. But ultimately, our job, Tom, and you're right. I mean, it's, call me the CEO of, we have, I think, 6 companies now, or a coach. The job is I'm a leader and I need to influence other leaders. So
I think you're spot on. And I think it's interesting, again, you and I know so many of the players in the space that, are at your level that are running these huge companies, and no knock against anyone that aren't creating content. Their companies are creating content, but it's very cool for me to see a fellow CEO take it on. Cause I know my team, just two of my team here know what it means to create this content, put it out, be engaged, be active, respond to people, DMs and more. And I see you doing that. And I just wanted to give you a shout out and say, man, awesome work and keep it up. So let me ask you a technical question. With the 6 different channels that you're on, where are you finding the most engagement and what are you doing about it?
So I think the most engagement right now is Facebook. I'm seeing LinkedIn really start to accelerate. I'm doing LinkedIn Live now. Smart. I think that's a really good place to be. And then my social media team's been measuring the impact of LinkedIn stories. So that's something that I'm really going to start pushing out here probably in the next week or two is LinkedIn stories. But it varies, but it's consistently you're getting good feedback on Facebook.
Yep.
I think you need to, you do need to throw a few dollars at Facebook in order to really get your spread out there. But ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out who isn't just noticing, but who's engaging.
Yeah.
And that's truly where you're going to find that deeper connection. And so we build email lists. We watch our impact, just like what you teach your clients how to do. And that's really how we grow our touch, our value delivery out there in the the real estate industry and beyond. I'm working in several other industries right now, helping people as well.
So I think it's important for people to get I'm going to leave this meeting, probably like yourself, and you have a dinner meeting. My next one is a quick call with my CFO. Then I'm meeting with my COO to just review sort of OKRs and what's going to happen for the fourth quarter. And are we prepped and ready to go for, January? And then I've got a meeting with one of my speakers and I'm going downstairs to check out an event. And then I'm probably going to shoot another piece of content. Like, you live in that world. So how do you like, for the person that's listening right now, that's like, oh God, if Ferry tells me one more time, I've got to start creating content, I'm going to punch him in the face. But you and I both know it is the way you scale trust. It is the way that you build your brand and your identity. So you become that trusted person. They say, Adam, I want a franchise or whatever, whatever the business mechanics are, that they trust you. What do you say to that agent that says, I'm just too busy?
I say that's your problem. I mean, realistically,
that's the right answer, man. I love that.
For crying out loud, I think we just went through this. 110 countries, over 130,000 agents, 6 companies. Tell me I'm not busy. But what I do is I have the emotional maturity to determine what decisions I make throughout my day in order to determine what I do. By the way, I create my content. Right. So, I do my research just like you do, my friend. Yep. And I mean, that's something that you find in leaders who deliver value is they're not just a talking head with somebody else's words. They go out and they actually put their words to what they're trying to create impact with. So, I'm too busy. Well, that's because you're making bad choices. Sorry, but that's true. Yeah. And that's that kind of transparent conversation that we have with people as leaders is we need to just be able to say, hold up the mirror and take a look at your day. And are your priorities where you need them to be? And you'll find a lot of times that they're not.
I literally just had this conversation and I'd love your input and feedback on it. I'm talking with a very successful client, right? One of your agents. And I say, look, you're on pace to do, call it $3 million in commissions this year. And you're telling me you didn't call your past clients. Right? That you let it go by a few days. And the shame is, and I'm not going to shame the person like publicly on the, on this podcast right now, but like, cause you're listening, like the shame is they actually think that it doesn't matter. They think that not making the calls that day, not creating the content that day, not doing the work that day, that it doesn't matter. But you and I both know it does matter. That 1 hour, I loved your phrase, the emotional maturity to be able to determine what I'm going to do and what I'm going to give my energy on. Those of us that understand that 1 hour matters. And in the real estate business, it's going to show up 60, 90, 120 days, positively or negatively. What, thoughts on that? What would you say to that agent who's, I'm so busy, I can't even make my own phone calls. I mean, I'm writing offers and I'm doing deals. Oh, right. What do you say to that person?
I think they need to audit their schedule more than anything. I mean, it's just, grand scheme of things, mm-hmm. they're choosing to not do it. Yeah. Because it's all a choice. Does it have negative impact? 100%. And unfortunately, we can't turn back the clock and fix that. You have to go back and apologize to those people. I'm sorry I haven't reached out to you before. Instead of just picking up the phone and going, hey, how are you? I was just thinking about you today. How you been? Yeah. And the person's not on their heels going, what do you want from me? Why are you calling me now? They're actually going, I get to talk to you every now and then, and I appreciate that. You're a kind human being. So, we have this ability to give a gift, and that gift is attention and personal appreciation. It's something they can't give themselves.
Yep.
And it's like giving somebody a smile. It's hard to smile through your mask right now out in public, but that's a gift that you should be giving people constantly. And in all reality, calling somebody for a 3 to 5 minute phone call just to say hi and I care about you takes no more time than giving a smile in the line at Starbucks. So we don't have an excuse. We rationalize an excuse because we're afraid of the fact that, yeah, you're right, Tom. I should have done this. I should have listened to Coach Tom tell me, do this, and I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, you and I both, it's no different from going to the gym, loving on your spouse, spending quality time with your kids. It's the emotional intelligence to make the right prioritization and choice. So let's go a different direction. 6 different companies. I know of 2. Just take us through the cadre of the companies, because I want to talk about managing and this will be good for everybody to listen to. So what are the 6 companies?
Okay. So obviously, Remax.
Yep.
And then we also have Motto Mortgage. So those are our 2 franchise companies. And then we have Booge, which is a technology company that services the real estate space.
Yep.
We have Weemlo, which is a recent acquisition that we've made during COVID, which happens to be a loan processing company. So they do all the loan processing for mortgage companies.
Yep.
And obviously we have a mortgage company as well.
Sure.
So
is that an LOS basically you guys acquired?
yes.
Yeah. Love it. Okay.
So and then we have First, which is our AI company that predictively tells you who in your contact list in the real estate space you should call because they're likely to sell their house. And
I knew I should have invested in that company when I met with, it was Mike, right? Like he's like, Ferry, you should do this. I was in San Francisco at an imminent event and like, he just walked by. He's like, Ferry, quick pitch. And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of AI companies, but now I know I lost again. All right. So you got First. I love it. I didn't know about that one. I knew about Weemlo. So what's the sixth one?
First had a great exit for their investors, Tom.
Yeah. Thanks for rubbing that in, man.
A little bit, for friends.
It's all good.
So, and then we just acquired a 20-year-old data aggregation company that does geo-targeting of rooftops called Gadberry Group. So, it's a portfolio of franchising, so real estate and mortgage, as well as data and servicing around those two sectors. But like Gadberry, services quite a bit of outside the real estate space as well.
So first of all, congrats on all the recent acquisitions, right? We know that that's always a fun experience, folding people in, creating trust, getting back to speed. So give us some insight on that. Like you acquire a company. What is that path in for the people that are listening? Like when a company gets acquired, maybe the CEO stays more than likely. Some of the executives are now scratching their head wondering what's going to happen. Who is this new parent company? How do you create that trust with everybody so you can actually get back to the speed and efficiency of work?
Well, the interesting part about a acquisition, especially in this day and age, is it has to work both ways. I mean, it's, and we're not dealing with manufacturing here. We're not dealing with supply chain. We are dealing with services.
Yes.
And look across the board, all of them are services. So what does that mean your greatest assets are? It's people.
People. Yep.
Exactly. So do you think, Tom, that if I was hiding as a CEO where people didn't know who I was, they didn't see these videos, the podcast, things like that they'd be kind of going, is that somebody we want to be with?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same like what, everybody that's listening to this is doing, because everybody listening to this is in the service space. If people can't look you up on Google and watch a video of you and see what kind of a human being you are, they most likely are going to pass and move on to somebody else that they can. Yep. So, a big part of this was, we looked for great people and we demonstrated to them that we're great people, because what we do know is that great people can work together to accomplish things. So that's really the foundation for it, for all of the acquisitions is this something that helps people in our space? Is it a service that provides value to people in our space with good people?
Yes.
And can we roll it into our good people? So, I mean, fundamentally, there's a lot of financials and review of risk and direction and things like that on these things, but ultimately it has to pass that test first.
Yeah. It's the likability test, right? Because we're all going to be in this sandbox together. So, well answered. Do you have a management operating methodology that you follow? OKRs, 40X, something like that? And if so, can you shed some light on it?
I believe you communicate, you make sure that everybody is, mine's pretty simple. Are we in alignment?
Yeah.
Are we communicating and are we executing?
Yeah.
So, we don't have to overcomplicate this. Ultimately, you've got a lot of people that overthink things, they overplan, they overstrategize. And what you need to do is you look around on the battlefield and you go, that's the hill we want to take. Is it worth our effort, our money, the risk, the expense, things like that? And is there a good upside? And when I look at something that we need to accomplish, back to 130,000 plus agents, I need to figure out, is this something that I can benefit them with? Can I benefit our stakeholders 130,000. A lot of them are shareholders as well because we're a public company.
Yeah.
And, I have to balance those things, but then you take a step back and you go, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
So, really your North Star is your values. Our values are very easily explained. MORE, deliver to the max, be customer obsessed, do the right thing, and everybody wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's really your North Star. And then you try and grow every day.
Love it. Love it. What are you accountable for? What's your job? What's your job? You know what I mean? Like everyone's like, I put CEOs on this show, Adam, and literally I'm like, what's your job? And they're like, what isn't my job? Like if I need to pick up the trash, but I'm like, but at the end of the day, like in a publicly traded company with a board, though you're on the board, you are responsible to, the board and then the shareholders. What are you accountable to?
Well, I'm accountable for future growth of the company. So, really that's what Wall Street banks on is, does this company look like it's going to have future growth? So are you investing, your numbers you're reporting they're a reflection of what you've done.
Yeah.
And then everybody has these forecasts. You do your financial forecasts and how do you get to that point? And they go, well, we think you can do this. And they don't know the inner workings of your company. They kind of guess, but and they put their formulas and their MBA students to it and things like that. And they go, all right, here's what we think you can do. Here's what you think you can do. Why is there a gap or is it in alignment? So, really I'm accountable to the results of the organization and the future growth of the organization. So you look at past 9 months, we've done 3 acquisitions. An acquisition generally is not accretive. It's not making money for the company instantly. So my job is, how do we turn those into accretive assets in the organization and continue future growth? So I have a plan, I have a story behind all that, and I have an amazing team of people to work in that direction.
So, for the people out there listening, if you've never been part of a publicly traded company or someone at this level as Adam is, you're responsible, as he said, to so much more, not just the stakeholders, not all your employees, and in this case, all of his agents and everybody that owns a franchise and all these other companies, but he's also responsible to the board, right? And ultimately, I don't want to call them much of propeller heads because I got a lot of friends in high finance, but you all know what I'm talking about, right? They're looking at whatever Adam said and whatever Adam did in the last 90 days and then declaring what we think his stock's going to be worth in 90 days. So do you remember back in 2000, before the dot-com bubble, how often we found agents, back then we didn't have a phone. So we were just looking at our computer when we should be making our phone calls, staring at the value of stock, right? And watch. I would do seminars and say to agents, you need to turn that off and you need to sell houses, right? Because you got no control over this. And yet people like yourself and, Dave Liniger, who I also have mad love and respect for as you do, you got to look at that stock bouncing because it impacts, your finances, how the world feels about you. Like that's a lot of pressure, Adam. How do you deal with it?
I used to get shot at for a living, Tom. I look at it and I go, okay, it's a reflection of the fact that somebody's buying and selling. A lot of stock value rides on supply and demand.
Yep.
I cannot impact that on a daily basis. So I have to, resign myself to the fact that I'm going to do the best that I can do every day in order to impact that in the future.
Yeah.
So it's, and that's the discipline, that emotional maturity and the emotional intelligence that we just talked about, of knowing life is not about instantaneous results. In fact, you look at like Michael Porter, Harvard Business School professor, one of the greatest business professors of all time. So Michael Porter said, it's not really a strategy if it's less than 3 or 5 years that you're willing to be involved in it. So you can't chase the shiny thing and hope that you're going to make a difference in your business. You got to be dedicated to the grind, because business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Mm-hmm. And if you stop every now and then and go, all right, I'm going to go do this, and I need to go to the store, and I'm in the middle of this marathon, you're never going to finish and you're never going to see results. So, I look at it and I'm like, nothing I can do about it. Yay, great day, it's green. Oh, bad day, it's red.
Right.
Life goes on.
Yeah. I assumed you were going to say that, but I wanted people to hear it, right? That every CEO I know and high level executive, they watch it bounce, but they're like, I have no control over that. I'm going to focus on what I can control, which for everybody listening right now, what can you control? What are the levers and the dials that you can constantly play with to improve your performance, to get more time back, to get higher profits, to sell more houses and more? Okay, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to put you on the hot seat. This will be really fun. You ready? EXP is already public. Realogy is already public. Keller Williams is not. Compass is saying they're going. What's your take right now on the real estate, the greater real estate landscape? Do you think the public companies are going to do okay? Do you think the other ones are going to go public eventually? And what in the world is going on with all these mortgage IPOs? Just general sense. I know we're talking about your friends and quote unquote competition, but talk to me.
All right, Tom. I look at this, and there's always some speculation. There's always some distraction of this person's doing this or that person's stock price is doing whatever. Yep. I mean, the reality is for all of us on the street, if you're an investor, invest where you think is best for you, but ultimately go do your freaking job. Okay. And I mean, if you're spending all day reading articles about the industry, thinking that that's going to change what the buyer or seller down the street is going to do, you're wrong.
Yeah.
What's going to change what the buyer and seller down the street is going to do is the fact that they need to trust you and see that you're an expert in the space. And the only way they're going to know that is if you're putting yourself out there instead of sitting there looking at the app on your phone or, reading an article on some industry, newspaper or something like that. So I just, what? Let them do what they want to do. If you want to invest, go do it when they sell stock or anything like that, and do your job. But it's like, hey, what's Netflix going to do? What's Tesla going to do? I mean, come on, they're big companies. There's a lot of factors. If anybody actually knew what affected those on a daily basis, that person wouldn't be sitting around trying to figure out, okay, what do I buy? Because they would already know.
Yeah.
So, the reality is do your job and do it really well and get to be a better person each day. And life will treat you well.
If we were sitting here having a beer right now, I'd be like, you just diverted away from that question, but I appreciate it because you're right. Like focus on what you can control. So I'm letting you kind of off the hook. What do you think about all these IPOs with all these mortgage companies? I mean, we're in the middle of a refi boom. Of course they're making a fortune. You and I both know they're going to have to sustain growth as a publicly traded company or they are DEAD, dead in the water. What advice would you have for those CEOs?
It's interesting because they need to be looking down the road. I mean, we've been public just less than a decade. And the reality is it's the long game. So an IPO is a great way for people, a lot of times those early investors to take some chips off the table. Yep. That's really why a lot of these companies are doing that. Their investors got in a few years ago. They're looking for an exit, and it's hard for somebody who's now a minority shareholder to come in and take out those investors. The investors want to see a good return, and the majority of the time that has to do with an IPO process. So, ultimately, it's a function of a healthy economy of people growing businesses and reinvesting in those businesses, and that's the beauty of this society that we're in. Is that's how we grow companies, is by taking them public and allowing other people to invest in them. So it's a natural occurrence. When you look at when they started and when their IPOs occurring, there's a cycle there that occurs, and they're just following that. But you also time it to an extent. Is this the right time? And you pay somebody a lot of money to tell you whether or not it's the right time. And they read the tea leaves on the street and figure out, okay, this looks good. Let's do it. Risk is lower, or we can wait. Risk is higher, but you may see a higher return. A lot of people are like, we want to exit. Let's do it. So that's kind of, what you see happening with a lot of these startups. And you know what? Good for them. God love them, because being a public company CEO has a lot of different parameters to it. And it's a change for a CEO to understand that.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I mean, I want to go back to the early days. Law enforcement to CEO of all these companies. As I mentioned in the very beginning when we started this podcast, like there's not a lot of people that have a straight line path to that. So let's just say, Adam, the person listening right now, she's ambitious and she's like, one day I want to be CEO. Like, what does that person have to do to earn the right, whether they don't just start their own company. And by the way, you and I both know you could start your own company and you could have a title and a business card that says CEO, and you're probably not a CEO. You're not really operating at the way you could or should. What do you think is the most important learning steps along the way to get to that goal?
It's a combination of things, Tom. I mean, first of all, you said the word learning. Learning never stops if you want to be a CEO, if you want to be a business leader. I know a lot of CEOs, a lot of public company CEOs, and I'll tell you what, they work from the second they open their eyes, which generally is before 5 a.m. I get up at 4:30 every day.
Yeah.
And they're learning, they're improving, they're testing and measuring, they're executing, and it becomes a lifestyle. It's not something you go, hey, I want to go be a CEO, but I'm only going to do it a couple days a week. I mean, that doesn't work. It's like being, how do you build a super successful real estate team, real estate brokerage, as an individual agent? It's because you look yourself in the mirror every day and go, what did I do to make money for the company? And what did I do to grow myself?
Yeah.
And you got to have an answer twice a day, before lunch and before you turn out the lights. So, it is a unending endurance sport, and it's, hour after hour, but you have to learn to love it.
Yeah.
You got to learn to love it.
Yeah. Have you met David Goggins yet? Is that name?
No. I'm familiar with his work, his book, and all the physical stuff that he's done. I mean, the guy's a machine.
He is.
And I've not met him.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, so I've interviewed him multiple times, and was part of his book launch, and actually had him speak at one of our summits, and like he talks about like, hey man, you get there through pain, right? And it could be the pain of sacrifice, could be the pain of doing the work, trying to do 60,000 pull-ups, or it could be the pain that, hey, you know what, I'm going to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm going to listen to a podcast while I'm working out, getting in my exercise, and then being on my first meeting at 6:30 in the morning because I got clients, and customers all over the world. Like, I just think most people aren't ready for that. But I want people to get, just like I said, there's no natural path to becoming CEO. Well, let me say it to you this way. I'll ask it. Adam, at the end of the day, beyond shareholders, right? Beyond, revenue growth, like, what does it really mean to lead?
I love that question, Tom. So what it really means to lead is to affect change for good. And you lead in many ways. Like I talk to I have 3 college student kids now. Our kids are growing up, Tom.
I know. They got old. We didn't. They got old.
That's true. Yeah. I got younger. I mean, right. I added the Tom Ferry glasses and, but it's affecting change, but it's not change for change's sake. It's change for good sake.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you, you learn a lot of self lessons. First one is, how do you control your emotions? Mm-hmm. And the second one is, how do you switch from crisis to crisis without bringing the last one into the next one?
Bingo.
So in fact, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I brought from my previous career is you'd go to like a ton of different calls during the day and each one was a crisis, and you can't come from the last one where somebody's trying to kill you and come to the next one and allow that to affect how you treat somebody as a human and with kindness.
Yeah. So,
and that's really what, a business isn't quite as extreme. There's really nobody trying to take your life.
No.
But the reality is there's an extreme emotional overload going on in so many different aspects of life that we have to deal with, especially in the real estate space. Because I heard the survey again. Number one most stressful thing that somebody deals with in their life is moving. And guess what? You're right in the middle of that.
Right.
So, it's about controlling your emotions and helping people affect change for good in this process. And that change might be a negotiation process. It might be, okay, how do we get through these deadlines? How do we get that loan approved? Whatever it might be. But it is dealing with these crises on a regular basis.
Yeah. I forget who said it first, but I know, our mutual friend, Gary V, really put it, like, he just kept saying it over and over again, like being the CEO, being a leader is just getting punched in the face over and over again, putting a smile back on your face and going right back at it, because like, that's the game. Like you and I both know, I think it was Jim Rohn who said, like, the quality of your business is the quality of your ability to solve problems at scale, right? Like that's how you make money. And every listener knows that. Let me go to a totally different direction with you. Competition. How have you guys sort of, as Buffett says, dug the moat to make sure that this business isn't going to be annihilated by competition?
Yeah, it's interesting, Tom, because that would indicate that there's some sort of a conclusion to digging the moat.
Yeah.
You're never done digging the moat.
I love it. Yes.
I mean, you and truthfully, you get tired doing it, but that is getting tired, and your own feelings about it is a bigger competition than what's outside the moat.
Yeah.
So most businesses don't die from competition. Most businesses die from within, and then the competition rolls over them.
Yes. But Adam, right now, there's somebody listening like, man, I'm getting my butt kicked right now by, the discount broker, iBuyer just came into my marketplace, and I'm in that 250, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And you and I both know it's not everyone, but if they lose one, it's everyone is coming to get me. What advice do you have for people when it comes to competition?
People get hyper-focused on the challenges that competition brings to their door. And instead of looking at competition as being a tailwind for them, they look at it as a drag.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, you look at it and you guess what? Tomorrow we're all going to get up and we're going to be a day older. Are we going to look at that as a drag on us, or are we going to look at it as an opportunity for us?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the same thing with competition. There's going to be somebody new in your marketplace in this industry tomorrow. Guaranteed tomorrow, some little fire breather with a great business marketing idea is going to get their license tomorrow, and they're going to be banging on your door going, I'm taking you out. And you either look at it and go, that's just going to incent me to get better and get closer with my customers. And I need to make a move on the part of my business in order to improve that. So you can either look at it and go, this is distracting and it's a challenge, or, hey, wow, this just refocused me. This is an opportunity. I'm going after this.
Right. So how do you keep it fresh? And then how do you keep a company? Because really we're talking about like old school Peter Drucker. All business is innovation and marketing, right? You got to keep it fresh. And then you got to keep 6 different brands fresh. How do you do it?
You got to wake up every morning and really feel that way, Tom. I mean, I don't hit the snooze button. I hate the snooze button. So keeping it fresh it's not a singular choice in your life and in your day. It's a holistic choice in how you operate across the board. You can't pick to what part of your life you want to be successful in. And a lot of people try and do that. Yeah. They try and say, all right, I'm going to go make my business really good so I can go home and have a pizza and a beer. I'm sorry, but you got to take care of the whole package, because if your body is in a bad shape, if your mind is in a bad shape, your business is going to suffer. So, I mean, you just need to resolve yourself to the fact that you're either going to try and be the best or you're not. But if you're not, don't complain about somebody overtaking you, because you decided, again, emotional maturity. It's a choice that we get to make, whether or not I want to try and be the best every day. It's okay to go on vacation. Be selective about that and say, I'm unplugging, I'm done. I'm not going to worry about being the best today. I'm going to be the most relaxed today. But ultimately, it's hard to turn that brain off. You know it, Tom. You're sitting on the beach reading a business book and creating content.
Yep.
But and that's when you really know you're hungry for it, is when you struggle to turn it off. When it's easy to turn off, you need to reflect on it.
Right. I agree 100%. Adam, this has been super rad. I know we both got crazy schedules, and I'm looking at my team like this is another one of those, like this could have been like a 7-hour marathon of just bantering back and forth. But as we bring this to a conclusion, for the people out there that haven't taken the time or gotten to know Adam the way I know him, I hope you got a sense of who this guy is. We didn't get to talk about wife and kids, though we shed a little light on it. But he's the real deal. He's the real deal. And it's been fun to, you and I go back to Sales Power in Florida and all these kind of, that was very old school, cool product training we did together. But man, I just want to say I'm really proud of you. I love that you're putting out content. I'm all about that. So as we wrap this, just kind of closing thoughts from you, we're 92 days, I think, between now and the end of the year. This will go out sometime in October. What advice do you have for people that are listening, that just one last little nugget to get them to crush the fourth quarter in 2021?
First of all, huge gratitude to you, my friend. Knowing you over the years, you're a great human being and you care about people. And I keep my circle small, and I love to say that you and I pick up the phone and have conversation on occasion about how great things are and how even better they can be. So I'm honored to be, that close to you. So the closing thoughts. I was talking to an amazing CEO one day, Bill McDermott. He was the CEO of SAP Software. Yeah. And that guy, he wrote a great book. I think it was called Leaders Soar or something like that. It was a good book. Get the audio because you can hear him talk about it and carrying copiers up the stairs in New York and things like that when he was in sales. But I asked him, I said, Bill, I want to be the best leader I can possibly be. What advice do you have for me? And I'm sitting there thinking, all right, what's this guy going to pull out? And what he pulled out was something that I see every day and I reflect on every day. And it's this right here. He said, Adam, stay hungry and stay humble. And if you look at those two pieces of advice, when it comes to creating success in your life, the hunger of like we talked about, hitting the floor, going for broke every day and putting it all in, you got to do that. You can't go, I'm going to coast for a while and see what happens in my industry, because it doesn't work. You can't say, I'm going to not call my customers. You can't say, I don't like how I look on video. And for crying out loud, it takes you a couple hundred of them and you're like, whoa, this is actually working. But it works. Tom called me out on it. You heard me. You heard him say that. So, and then humility, be humble, be a kind human being and help people and give out that kindness as much as you possibly can and genuinely care, and life will treat you well. So that's what it's about. Just giving, and it does come back. I can promise you that. You don't know when, don't go looking for it, but let it do its job.
I love it, man. Well said, my brother. So thank you so much. Love to the fam and to the whole 6 Company org. Super proud of you. So my friends, as you're listening to this, follow Adam on all the social channels. Just type in Adam Contos and you'll find him everywhere. And listen, brother, thank you. Crush the rest of this year. And I'll look forward to talking to you soon. And for all my listeners out there, give us a share, give us a like, give us some comments. And we love you. Thank you so much for being a listener and just being in our community. See you guys soon.